All right, hello, and welcome to our next exit interview where I have the lovely Nick Telson with me. How we doing, Nick?
I'm good. You all right, Sean?
Oh, I'm good. I'm here with you, straight from a roast. It's great. First off, thank you for doing this. The principle behind this interview is simple. We're talking about your entrepreneurial adventure without any fluff. We're not sugarcoating anything. We're going to go from startup to exit. The goal is to go beyond the press releases and the social media and really understand the secret sauce of your success in order to educate and inspire future founders and entrepreneurs. With that being said, are you ready to rock?
Let's go.
All right. So introduce yourself. Just tell us a little bit about your background and your journey.
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually a language student, so shows you don't
I
have to
I
do
I,
business.
I saw that. I don't want to just interrupt you at the first at the first sentence, but I have to ask. I mean, you didn't get a degree in business at university, correct?
Shock, I know. It's probably the best thing I ever did as well. Languages, I think, are great because it gives you confidence, communication skills, elements of leadership. It's very wide ranging. You obviously don't just learn about the language, you learn about like the culture, the history, the literature. So, and I love languages and it's the only thing I'm good at. So I had to do languages, loved it. But then that got me onto the graduate scheme over here in London at L'Oreal, the big beauty brand. So back in the day, that was a very popular marketing grad scheme. So I was fortunate to get on that, worked my way up there for 3-4 years to marketing manager of one of their brands, which was amazing. Stayed in London, then decided to go it alone in my mid-20s with my co-founder, who was also my best mate at university, Andrew. We set up a company in the UK called Design My Night, which was on the one hand a B2C offering of sort of like where to go out in London. And on the other side, there was 3 elements of SaaS. So we had reservation software, we had ticketing software, and we had vouchering software for pubs, bars, and restaurants. We bootstrapped it. We only ever raised £500,000 from 6 angel investors. We grew that over 7 years, over 100 people, 15,000 SaaS customers, and about 8 million uniques a month on Design My Night. We spread that to 22 cities in the UK, exited in 2017 to a UK software unicorn. We then had a 2-year earnout with them, which led to the end of 2019. Since then, I've been angel investing. So I angel invest in over 50 startups across the world. And then recently, Andrew, myself, and a third co-founder just started a new business called Trumpet, which is in the B2B sales.
You aren't doing enough.
And a podcast called Pitch Deck, which is like Shark Tank, but real life.
Oh, Shark Tank, but real life. I like that. Wow. Well, I mean, again, you have a really unique journey. I mean, every founder has a different path to exit and success. But I want to get into the weeds of it. Going back to your degree, here in the States, there's a lot of backlash about the price of university and the actual value of a degree. So, if you were to get a degree in languages here, people might laugh at you. They say, why are you doing that? You should be focusing on something so you can get a good job and get hired. You already said that, languages is what you were good at. You wanted to do it. It's what you enjoyed. But would you say you wish you had studied more business at university, or were you happy with the path that you chose?
Yeah, definitely not. Like, as in, wouldn't have done business. I've got friends that did business and they have then gone into the real world and said they haven't learned any of what they learned in their business degree. So for me, it was great to do languages. I know, at least in the UK, languages are quite highly thought of in sort of the corporate world, which is where I started out. And for me, like, university was more about like finding myself, come out of my shell a lot more. Obviously, I've made friends for life. But I'm not someone that says like you have to go to university to be successful at all. Like a lot of our hires, especially at Design My Night, never went to university. So I'm also a big advocate for just like getting out there. If you want to work in startups or be an entrepreneur, go and work for a startup in like an early role there and work your way up, learn the ropes. So yeah, I don't think there's a right or wrong way for anyone, but you definitely don't have to go and learn business to then succeed in business.
Understood. So do you think entrepreneurship, even as a part-time student, or do you think just the value of a degree in 2023 going into and beyond, especially for startups and entrepreneurship, is just, not needed, but is just kind of a relic of the past?
I think it really does differ from person to person. I think if you want to get into entrepreneurship, or if you want to be a founder or work at a startup, and you also have the means and want to go to college or university, then why not do a course in entrepreneurship? But you definitely don't need one to make it big in the startup world. I really truly believe that.
Well, you're living proof. I mean, so you heard it here first. Okay, so very helpful. Now, as a former nightlife ninja myself, I'm interested to hear about how Design My Night came about. Was it the result of you trying to find some party to go to and not having a resource and just being annoyed, or were there other, offerings that you thought were terrible? Tell me about it.
Believe it or not, where like all the good ideas that happen in London, it came from New York. So Andrew and I were on holiday in New York, and we were very drunk one night in Benny's Burritos in Greenwich Village. And we came up with the idea that night when we were thinking back to, where can you search to go out in London? It sounds crazy, but this was when we were ideating, was 2019. That was like thinking about millennials, that was mobile first.
2019 or 2009?
Right, 2009. So not that revolutionary if you think about it now, but back in the day, there wasn't that many offerings. We also then were thinking like the concierge at the hotel, when we said like, we want to go out tonight. He was like, where do you want to go out? What music do you like? What area do you want to go out? So I think that started us to think, if we could translate a concierge service into a going out website and make it more like millennial focused, mobile first, you could be onto something. So yeah, we started ideating that night. And then when we came back to London, we properly dug into the idea.
So it was born out of a night of drunken debauchery, is what you're saying?
Correct.
And they say alcohol kills brain cells. All right, nice. So you and your co-founder, you were still working your full-time jobs, correct, when you started this?
Yeah, so we worked our full-time jobs for probably about a year when we were building the website. So we met up like every evening, every weekend, and it was a proper side hustle. And then after a year, I left my job, and then Andrew stayed at his. He worked at Accenture, so he was earning a lot more than me. So we actually split his salary for 6 months.
Oh, wow, that's a good friend.
Yeah, as a good friend. Well, I was building the business with no salary. So we were like, let's do that. So we did that for 6 months, and then we started to see traction. So then he made the leap as well. But we worked hard in that year before to like save all the money we could. We never went out. We didn't really socialize. We, didn't eat out in restaurants, and we just saved as much money as we could for that year, knowing that we would have to make that last when we fully left our jobs.
Yeah, I'm always interested in, seeing how early stage founders do it. Not so much as the runway of the business, but the runway of the rent, the groceries, a social life, if any. So you guys just focused down and built. That's what it was. There was no partying. There was no going on trips. There was just, he went to his real job. You worked on the startup. He came home and then joined you on the startup, and that's how it was, and split a salary, and that's how it was until you both became full-time, correct?
Yeah. Like, we were privileged enough that both our jobs were well-paying jobs. So, it's not that easy for everyone to just save for a year to then have enough capital to then go and run a startup. But that, it worked for us, and we knew that if we just hunkered down for a year, we would save enough to keep us going, like living very leanly still, but keep us going.
Did you live together, or did you live in your own flats?
No, we lived separately. What we did do was, one of our best mates worked at Google in London. So we used to go and visit him like 3 times a week for free lunch. And
nice.
we stole all the snacks from around his desk, and that was our dinner. So we did that for quite a long time as well. So thanks, Google.
Oh, well, see there, and they say offices have no benefits to anyone.
Yeah.
So after going full time on your startup, was there a period that you missed, like the comforts of a day job, as in a structure, a salary, benefits, the safety, essentially? What did you face that mentally as you were sitting there building something and hoping it worked out, or what were your thoughts at the time?
I think we were so focused on it being successful, we didn't miss the structure, and we were so used to living leanly that we didn't sort of miss the salary as such. And we were just so excited by building Design by Night. Well, I would say over those first sort of 3 years, I did miss the way that if you work for a job, you can just turn your brain off. So, you know, I would think, oh, you know, it'd be so nice to not think about some Design by Night in the evenings, or go on holiday and think about Design by Night, or on the weekends and think about Design by Night. And I did miss closing that office door at 5 o'clock, leaving the L'Oreal office and not having to think about L'Oreal till the next day or after my holiday. So I think the stress of just the relentlessness of thinking about Design by Night constantly did take its toll. So I think that was the only part that I did miss about the safety of the corporate world.
Understood. What did you and your co-founder do to cope mentally? Did you have daily walks? Did you have someone to talk to? Was it exercise? I mean, because startups are, you know, they're generally very difficult on the mind, because, you know, they're one-way trips. There's essentially no guarantee that you will be successful, you will have an exit. It's, you know, statistically speaking, one of the hardest things to accomplish is to be a successful startup founder. So, you know, my question, I guess, is, you know, it's Wednesday afternoon. You've been working on this all morning. You know you've got limited funds. There's no salary. You know there's no easy way out except going forward. But how did you cope mentally?
I think it wasn't talked about as much back then. So I think there's a lot of information out there now. There's a lot of other founders talking about it, which is good. I think back in those days, it was, I think, yeah, there was no sort of secret sauce to do it. Exercise was definitely one of them. But I think just having each other. I think we were best mates as well. So we knew like when to make a joke out of things, when to have fun. We were very good that if one of us was down, the other one would be up, and vice versa. Any doubts we had, if one had doubts, the other would pick you up. So yeah, we didn't like meditate, walk every day, you know, eat specifically healthily, you know, all the things that people do now and should do. But it was just leaning on each other as sort of best mates rather than founders to pick each other up when we needed.
Understood. When did you raise your first angel round? How many years into the business was it?
So about 2 years, 1.5 years in, we raised £250,000 from 6 angels, and then they followed on the following year with another 250,000.
And with that money, did you use it for your personal expenses, to maybe take yourself out for some food, to say, we're going to reward ourselves because we're tired of eating the snacks from Google for the 10th day in a row. If I eat one more kind bar or Cliff Bar, I'm going to lose it. You know, I mean, was it all 100% to the business, or was it used for personal expenses, rent, food? Tell me about it.
It was probably 80% business. So we did pay ourselves, but small salary, like enough.
Could you tell us, because I know, you know, there's the ramen salary, which I wrote about in our How Much Should Founders Pay Ourselves link, which I'll put in the transcript. You know, the ramen salary, the broke is all hell flavor. But could you tell us like how much it was? Was it something that was laughable? I mean, of course it's laughable compared to an office job, but was it something that just was to cover your food and your expenses, or was it what was the exact amount, or what was it used for?
At the start, it was probably around 18,000, 20,000 pounds a year each.
Okay.
So like back in the day, that would have been like a very low entry salary job somewhere. But for us, that was enough to then, be able to just live a teeny bit better at least, and just give us a bit of security. And as the business grew, obviously, we then started to pay ourselves more. We never paid ourselves loads. So actually, when we exited and we had over 100 people, Andrew and I were probably in the bottom 60% of earnings for the company. So we never actually paid ourselves loads because we were so EBITDA driven. And we were like, well, there's no need to pay us a big salary because our big salary is going to come when we exit, when we hope. So we never actually paid ourselves a fortune. But yeah, having taken that first round, we could pay ourselves a small amount, but the rest was definitely like hiring. So before that, we'd hired like interns, university students that wanted experience. So it was like a very young, inexperienced team that was just there to help out. So for the first time, we could hire a CTO, we could hire a content manager, and actually start to build the team, to build the business.
Did you guys have an office at the time, or was it just working out of one of each other's flats?
At the start, it was each other's flats. So Andrew's lived in South London. I lived in North London. So we used to meet in a Starbucks in Central London on Regent Street most days because it was huge and they had good internet. And then when we raised the first round, we got a very, very small, crappy office. But we actually stayed there for like 2 years.
And then you moved to a nicer, bigger office afterward, or was it a WeWork, or what? I always like to ask what the next step was. You hired all these people. Do we all just meet at Starbucks or our small, tiny office, or do we actually get the nice posh office where we have our own snacks?
yeah, we did get to that eventually, which was a moment. Actually, the way we did offices was always very sort of handmade. So the first office was very small and crappy, but in central London. Then as we were hiring more people, we actually went upstairs in that same block and had another crappy office, but was a bit bigger. And then we would go to IKEA and just like deck it out and make it look fun, again, for cheap. Then we moved to Shoreditch, which your US listeners might have heard of, but that's sort of like the Silicon Valley of London. So that's
is it near the Silicon Roundabout?
Silicon Roundabout is what it's called because there's a huge roundabout there. So obviously rents were more expensive there, but we actually found like an old clothing warehouse and the landlord was like, yeah, you can have it. So it was just an empty warehouse. And again, we went to IKEA and just decked it out. And then we took the office next door to that and connected it to ours. And then finally in that same building, we took the top floor and then decked it out with our acquirers actually. And had a like super cool fancy office, but still with a rooftop and everything, but still within this like old warehouse. But that was nice. Right.
And so did this happen after the second round of funding was raised?
So after the second round, that's when we moved to our first office in Shoreditch. And then we slowly got bigger and bigger as the years went on. The super fancy office was actually right around our exit.
Understood. So you raised capital from a group of 6 angels, correct? That was was your angel investors, and then it was the same group of angels that you raised the next round of capital from.
Yeah.
Is that the total amount raised?
Yeah, it's $500,000.
Wow. So $500,000 from the same people. Did you look for other outside capital?
No. So our vision was always with that $500,000. Build a profitable company. The whole journey was about 9.5 years for us. So it was slower than if we would have probably taken bigger funding. But Andrew and I wanted to always keep a large slice of equity. We knew how much money we wanted to take from the business on exit. So we then just did the math basically, and we could see what we needed to exit for in say 5-6 years with how much equity we had. So we just worked towards that goal of revenue, EBITDA. When we exited, we were running at a 48% EBITDA margin. So we worked really hard to build a really profitable company.
Well, it's interesting because it's $500K total for a 9-year journey, correct?
Yeah.
And I see decks all the time, and I'm sure you do. The pre-seed decks or the seed decks that want $5 million out the gate. What do you say to the founders, that truly want to build a business, but they don't know how much money to raise, and they think more is better, and they think, well, if we're going to raise 5, we might as well raise 10. What would your advice be to them? Because we see so many different numbers coming in, and again, we all have the same stupid little chart. Here's where the use of proceeds are going to go, but like, I want to know your thoughts on that. On someone, let's say they're pre-seed and they want to raise $4 million, or let's even say they're seed. They have some traction. They want to raise $5 million. What are your thoughts on these crazy amounts of money from someone who actually, you yourself, did it with far less than what we see in decks today?
I mean, it's a really complicated answer, and there's definitely not a right or wrong way. Like, I'm definitely not someone that says you have to bootstrap and actually trumpet our latest business. We raised $2 million pre-product, pre-revenue from VC. So I'm definitely not one to say like you have to do it this way. I think the first thing to think about before you raise money is what you want out of it as founders. Like, what do you want to achieve with this business? If you take ego out of it, if what you want to achieve is, a $500 million business plus, then yeah, you're probably going to have to go down the VC funding route and grow a big global business. However, what isn't talked about enough is if you want financial freedom, and actually $4 million to you is financially freedom, then actually you might only need to sell your business for $15 million. And actually you can sell your business for $15 million by just taking angel funding. So depending what you want from the business, and I say you got to take ego out of it, because I think ego drives people to big rounds and headlines in TechCrunch and stuff. It really depends the different route you take. A lot of founders that I meet pre-seed that are trying to raise, say, $1 million without anything. You have to then get quite a big valuation to keep your equity, but you've got nothing to show that you're worth that money. And then you're just chasing constantly this false valuation. And obviously the market's sort of caught up with that now and it's collapsed a bit. So, my advice to founders at the moment is, there's so many vehicles to raise money with quickly now that you can do, from angels or syndicates or, loads of different options. So maybe just raise $150,000 at a sensible valuation, get some traction, build an actual product, get some customers, then raise another $200,000 at a bigger valuation, but still sensible, carry on building and actually get to a level then where you haven't given away loads of equity, but you've got a product, you've got some traction, and then you can decide, okay, now we're going to go and raise $4 million, or we don't need to raise $4 million. Let's go and raise $500,000 and then take it to the next level. So I think before you raise, you need to be charting 5 years ahead on where you want the business to be, how much money or what you personally want out of the business, and what different route you really feel you want to go down. It's definitely not the way just to go and raise a big round because you can. Understood.
So when you raised your funds, did you have advisors on your team, or was it just you and your co-founder?
Just that. So yeah, for Design My Night, it was just me and Andrew, and it was actually our mentor at the time who became our first angel investor, who was actually a professor at the London Business School, which is a very well-known business school in the UK. So he was great. He was always on our side. He actually became our chairman as well. So he wrote the first check and then introduced us to the 5 others, and then we pitched them individually. And yeah, we did a little negotiation, but it was all very friendly, and yeah, it worked out for both of us.
Very nice. So you had a sizable exit. What was the number?
We say it was between $30 and $40 million. Is
that pounds or dollars?
Dollars.
Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah, it's very sizable. Do you have any regret that you didn't stay longer and try to get to that 100 million mark or 200 million mark, or were you happy with the 30 to 40 million? I only ask because people, want to be billionaires and exit for hundreds of millions, but you're a realistic guy. I'm a realistic guy. I'm sure we have some realistic readers and viewers. I mean, as you said earlier, put your ego aside. Were you happy with that number?
Yeah, really, really happy. As I said, like Andrew and I spoke about what financial freedom meant to us and how much that would need in our back pocket, and how much we would be happy with. And that number ended up over what we thought. So in terms of number, we're very happy. It's a conversation we had because we then had the 2-year earnout. And if we were going to hit our targets of our 2-year earnout, then actually, if you think to yourself, well, actually, if I would have stayed for those 2 years without selling, the business would have been worth even more. But I think we got to a stage where at that time we were 7.5 years in. We'd pretty much bootstrapped it the whole way. We were knackered. We were mentally exhausted. We weren't the sort of upstart anymore. So our big competitors were starting to round back in on us, and they could see what we were doing and starting to copy some of the features we were doing. So that made us a bit uneasy. So we just thought this is the right time to exit. The industry tailwinds are telling us to exit now. This is more money than we said we wanted, so let's not get greedy. And look, as it happened, 3 months after our earnout, COVID hit. So the timing was very right.
Yeah. So talk about, you hear that sound? That's the bullet going by your head. That's the sound of the bullet flying by you. Wow. Oh yeah, that's very good timing. And of course, no more free snacks.
Yeah, no more free snacks.
Proper meals. So you exited out. What made you want to become an investor and launch Horseplay Ventures, and to even still work after that? I mean, I feel like you guys, you spent a significant portion of your life bootstrapping and working, and you just wanted to get back right into it. I mean, most people would go, I don't know, the Kathmandu and climb a mountain, or not want to look at a computer screen, but you immediately kind of went back into it. Why?
So we started angel investing before the earnout, so when we actually first exited, and that was just it was a financial strategy. So we wanted to make money from angel investing. And by that time, we'd made a lot of angel investor friends and contacts, so it sort of learned a lot. We thought we'd enjoy it. So like being introduced to all these cool founders, being involved in their businesses, but not actually working for them. So just, dropping in and out with advice and thinking for them. So we thought that would be cool as well. So we set up Horseplay. People think it's a fund or a VC. It's not. It's just Andrew and I angel investing, but we wanted to create a brand around angel investing, because obviously angel investors are just loads of different people. There's no brand around angel investing. So we wanted to create a bit of a cool brand that people could relate to. We've got like free startup tools on there as well that people can use, and just sort of help the community. That's part of my podcast as well. So we just like really enjoy the startup world. And then in terms of going again with Trumpet, obviously COVID hit. So we were probably going to travel for a year with our loved ones, etc., but we couldn't. So you sort of asked yourself, we were mid-30s, so still relatively young. And, you ask yourself, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? I don't want to sit on a beach for the rest of my life. That doesn't fulfill me at all. And you sort of ask yourself the difficult questions that you never normally do, like what makes me happy? What brings me joy, apart from partners and family and friends? And I'd never really asked myself that, because I'd gone from university to L'Oreal to Design My Night and just never really stopped. And whether it be sad or not, I think we both agreed, luckily, that we just love building brands. We love the cut and thrust of startups. And obviously with this one, there's less pressure because, our financial life doesn't revolve around Trumpet succeeding, which it did a bit with Design My Night. So we thought, let's do it again. We love it. We love ideating. We had about 7 ideas and we landed on Trumpet. And for this one, we brought in a third founder. So a guy called Rory, who we've known for years, who wanted to be a founder. So that has allowed us to sort of focus on the stuff we love. So Rory's the CEO. He manages the team and the office and all of that stuff. And Andrew and I can just focus on like brand building, sales, data, operations, so the stuff we really enjoy. So we're really, really enjoying it.
Great. What's more fun, being involved in the startup that you're doing, or just being an angel investor in other startups?
100% doing your own. I think that's another reason why we thought let's do it, because actually being an angel investor was just not fulfilling at all. You realize that actually a lot of founders don't really reach out for your help or ask for your advice. So out of the 55 plus investments we've done, we probably only speak really regularly to like 10 of them. But we make ourselves open to everyone, but just founders rightly or wrongly, are very head down. So you feel quite disconnected from a lot of them. You know, you just get your quarterly update and that's it. So we really missed like having an impact.
Understood. So with that being said, what is Trumpet? What does it do? And bonus question: is it personally fulfilling?
So Trumpet, we looked at the whole B2B sales journey. So there's loads of tools for outreach, and there's loads of tools for CRM. But then we looked at that whole piece in the middle where you are sending cold outreach, so decks, PowerPoints, PDFs, slides. And then you have the back and forward with the customer, FAQs, show me this, can you send me a use case, can you send me a case study, and then getting the deal done and then handing them over to customer success for onboarding. It was very old school. So we wanted to unify that whole journey. So we're very buyer focused. So we unite the buyer with one journey from cold outreach all the way to onboarding with personalized microsites. So the salesperson can whip up like Canva almost. We're like Canva for salespeople. They can whip up these personalized microsites in minutes without design skills, personalized to your customer. That helps you get your foot in the door. And then with that pod, as we call it, the microsite, you can just add pages. So if they come back and ask for use cases and video content, you can drop it in the pod. If they have contracts or SLAs they want to see, you drop it in the pod. And then you hand over that pod to customer success and they carry on with that same pod onboarding the customer. So yeah, it's sort of a new space within sales. It's going great. We opened up the beta in June this summer. We had 3,000 on the wait list. We've now onboarded about 1,500. And it's going really, really well. The ROIs are proving themselves, which is great. So yeah, really excited. And yes, it's very, very fulfilling.
And you raised outside investment for this, correct?
Yes, we did a $2 million VC round.
Why do the round if you guys can clearly self-fund it?
So we self-funded the start. So we self-funded the build, the brand. We actually worked on the product for like 7 months before even talking about it. So when we sort of ignored the lean startup. So when we launched our MVP, it was, people have said it's like a Series A product. And that's because Andrew and I had invested quite a lot of money into the product, into the team, and Rory as well. But then we wanted to bring in outside funding to then kick on. So we essentially did like the pre-seed round ourselves, and then brought in VCs to kick it on.
Why did you bring in the VCs and not the same group of angels from last time?
For Trumpet, we wanted to take a bit of a different tact. Like Trumpet is self-serve, it's product-led growth, it's instantly global. So like all of those reasons, it can scale really, really quickly. And we wanted VC backing and VC portfolio codes to help us with that. Whereas Design by Night was always quite difficult to scale because of the big content piece around it as well. And Andrew and I said to ourselves, like, if we're going to do another startup, it has to be those things. So PLG, self-serve, and global. And Trumpet is all of those three things. So we put ourselves in the bracket of wanting to get to where Slack are or Figma or Notion. It's that type of product. So we felt that VC was the best way to do that.
Understood. So we talked about the importance or lack of importance of a business degree. We talked about bootstrapping. We've talked about, self-funding. I want to talk about location because there's a lot of founders, in tiny little places around the world. And you guys were right in London. Do you think right now in this day and age, going into 2023, that a founder can be successful outside of a major hub? Could they be successful in Nottingham, or do they have to go to London? Could they be successful in Wales? Because one school of thought is it's remote, it's fine, and the other school of thought is you have to be there. You have to be in Silicon Valley, or New York, or London. What do you think?
I think it helps. I don't think you have to be in those city centers for you to be successful. 100% not. But it just helps. Like there you can, a lot of head offices are in London. So, you know, we're doing top-down sales for Trumpet with Enterprise at the moment, and we can go and meet them in their offices in London. A lot of the capital is in the major cities. So it's much nicer to go and speak to a VC face-to-face rather than over Zoom. So I think COVID obviously helped the opposite of what I'm saying. So, you know, we raised our Trumpet round actually over Zoom because it's still sort of COVID was happening. So it can definitely be done. And you definitely don't need to be in a major city to be successful. But I think it just gives you that small little leg up, I'd say, and helps you along your way. If you do want to have a small office, you know, it helps you attract certain bits of talent as well. So it helps, but it's not the be all and end all, I don't think.
Do VC offices have snacks? And if so, did you partake?
Not as good as Google, and I normally had to have a water, but I did treat myself to sparkling water.
Oh, wow. Okay. You heard it here first. Well, if there's my last question, because I want to be respectful of your time. What advice will you give a founder right now in 2023 that is on, you know, no two journeys are the same, but is working a full-time job, that's bootstrapping, that, you know, wants to go on the journey, whether it's 4 years or 5 years or 10 years, but really wants to make their company successful? What bit of advice do you have for them, just from your personal experiences, that could benefit them?
I think that the two best things we did at Design My Night and Trumpet, and it doesn't cost you anything, was getting close to your buyers or even your potential buyers. I think that's the best thing you can do in the early stage. So for Design My Night, we spent every weekend walking around bars and pubs and asking to speak to general managers or owners. We would show them what we were up to. We would get their feedback. We would take their email address, take their phone number, and start to build a rapport with them. And then, you know, when we did launch, or when we were launching new things, we almost had like our own little client list already, and they met us in person, they remembered us. We got amazing ideas from that as well. And Trumpet, before we even spent a penny on development, we interviewed over 150 salespeople and founders and said, this is our idea. We would love feedback. Like, we would love to jump on a call, but if you don't have time, here's a type form. We would love you to fill it out. It'll take you 5 minutes. This is the idea. Be as honest as you can. Do you like it? Do you not? If you like it, what things would you like to see in it? If you don't like it, why? What would your intent to buy be of this product? And that just helped us so much shape our product, have a user list to go to when we did launch. It helped us raise money, because when we went to VCs, we were pre-product, pre-revenue, but we could show them all this research we'd done. And we still stay incredibly close to our customers, and it's where most of our best ideas come from. So don't shy away from that. Get yourself out there, get on the phone. It doesn't cost you anything. Don't hide behind your laptop. And I think that's the best solid foundation you can have when starting an early stage business.
And not be afraid of the feedback, correct?
And I think what a lot of founders do is they'll block out the negative feedback.
Exactly.
So listen to it. Don't be defensive. They're saying it for a reason. They're not just trying to be rude. You don't obviously have to agree with every bit of feedback, and not everyone's right, but digest it, think about it, take it on board. I think that's the most important thing. And when you're ideating, so as I said, we had like 7 ideas before Trumpet. What I say to founders to do is try and do everything you can to dissuade yourself it's a good idea. So change your mindset. So when you're going out for feedback, don't go out trying to prove it's a good idea, because you'll ask the wrong questions and your mindset will be wrong. Try and prove to yourself that it's a bad idea. And if you can get through that time and you're like, oh, it could be a good idea, then you could be onto something. So you just got to sort of flip your mindset. I think the minute someone comes up with a name for their business and starts creating a logo, they're all in and are probably ignoring negative feedback. So forget all of that, and, you know, really speak to the industry, speak to potential buyers, look at what competitors are doing, listen to podcasts, and really understand everything. Just try and prove to yourself that it's a bad idea. And if you can come through that still thinking it's a good idea, then you might be onto something.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's all for me. I want to thank you for personally being here and being open and sharing your journey and providing all that great feedback and the notion that Google has the best snacks. That's what I got out of it. But it was really great, and we'll have some links so we can find you at Trumpet, at Horseplay Ventures, at your personal site, and your podcast. Because people, as you know, we do our roasts, but you are much quicker and I assume much more ruthless. But again, it's all feedback, it's all helpful, and it's all useful in the end. So you can't be afraid of that. Nick Telson, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Sean.